Mr. Veeder.
Leyland? Little? Trelka?
Here.
White?
Here.
Schwartz?
Here. Please join us in a moment of silence to reflect on today's actions. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have the agenda as received or amended?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is approved. Are we able to hear the folks online?
Yeah. Linda, could you say something?
Can't hear.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go.
Linda, can you say something?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Next is public comments. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on something that's not an agenda item? I don't see anyone in the room or online today. We'll move on to claims and payments. This is go ahead, James.
James Ferry, Finance Director. Given the light agenda, I think I'm going to go line item by line item. No, I'm just kidding. Total claims, $257,640.24. Larger items, $11,361 for jail commissary, $14,914 for conservation, $76,150 for this first half of the CGIS budget. $22,196 for the sheriff, $39,710 for IT. Everything looks normal. I'm here for questions if you have any.
Nope.
Perfect.
All right. Would someone like to make a resolution?
So moved?
Motion for approval, second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Leyland?
Yes.
Little?
Yes.
Trelka?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Schwartz?
Yes, the resolution is approved. Next, we will receive project updates from department heads or elected officials.
Morning,
We'll
Kathy.
first start in the room with Kathy.
Good morning, Board. Kathy Nicholas.
Good morning.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to keep you updated on some of that work that we talked about during last budget session about how we wanted to improve several miles of gravel roads with some subdraining and then some stabilization work. And last week, we began the subdraining work. Thank you, Kim. And that work was completed by Shig-Free Construction out of Dubuque, Iowa. This work cost approximately $30,000. And I wanted to show you several slides that show some of the work that went on last week. So this is the big trenching machine that actually installs the subdrain itself. And again, we're doing this work on Amesboro Avenue, about 4,500 feet, lineal feet, going from Schrock Road, then south, almost a mile. And then we're also doing this work on Hammond Avenue from Schrock Road north, about 2,500 feet. And you can see that the trenching machine is placing the trench in the middle of the southbound lane. We were not able to go in the middle of the road due to the logistics of this machine and getting the trucks to go, needing to load trucks and be able to travel right next to it. In the end, this was industry standard, and I just wasn't aware of that. To go down, you place the drain in whichever lane has the worst frost boils was what we decided to do. And so here's the trencher placing digging the trench. It's about 26 inches deep. Our ditches are approximately 28 inches deep on both of these portions of roads. So that's how it was decided how deep to put the subdrain in. Do I Do this or do you, Kim? Okay, so here's a side view of the trenching machine. They made pretty good progress on the roads, about 17 to 35 feet per minute. Next slide. You can see it loading into the truck there on the left side of the photo there. So the first item of work is to dig that trench, and then this is looking back to the north on Ainsborough Avenue. You can see the trench there on the left side of the road. They're ready to put the tile in now, and then the backfill. Next slide. So I thought I'd show you a photo of what you can see, that cross section. You can see in the left photo that there's about 2 to 6 inches of rock on that road, and that's a pretty good cross section. 6 inches is a pretty good amount of rock on our gravel roads. And as we went towards the north portion of this road, there was only about 2 inches of rock, and that's what contributes to just the inconsistency. When we do have frost boils, the roads can be very susceptible to the frost boils if there's moisture in the road bed, just due to some of the thin layer of rock on our roads. You can see in the right photo there's several layers of rock and dark material intermixed, and we think that obviously that bottom layer is the actual subgrade of the road, and then there was rock placed on top of that, and then there was a frost boil that came up through the rock, and then we placed rock on top of it. So this was a common site as well where we can see a frost boil coming up, and that's actually visible in the cross section there. Next slide, please. So again, in the process here, you can see they're actually installing the subdrain now. This apparatus on the side of the machine is the shoe that feeds the subdrain tile into the trench, and then they come back and they'll place some aggregate on top of that. Next slide. You can see that they've placed rock on top of that subdrain, and this is a crushed rock to allow the water to filter through into that drain. Next slide. And then finally, they came back with the same machine, and they're placing about 4 to 6 inches of the roadstone, of the rock that we would use on top of our gravel road system. Next slide. And then along the way, we of course have to be outletting this water that's collecting in the subdrain. So at low points along the road, we are placing the subdrains. There's 2 of them being installed right there. There's a culvert that goes across the road right in between there, and so that's why the subdrains were placed on each side of the culvert. That's the low point in our road system at this point. And then this is the last slide. It just showed the finished product. They were finished in about 8 hours on this road, and then moved on to Hammond Road the next day. And we do anticipate that the actual stabilization work will take place the last week in August. Next slide. Yeah, that's it. Can I answer any questions at this point? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other department heads or elected officials? Yes, Nafisa. You can't. Yeah, I think you're still muted. You're muted. Or
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, good morning, board. I just wanted to give you all an update on where we are as it relates to COVID and the preparation for the fall. So for the month of July, we have hit above 50 cases 3 times in the month of July. So on average, we're seeing about 29 cases. And this is a bit different from back in April, where we already had a huge increase in cases. That was, very localized. It was due to an outbreak. But now the cases that we are seeing is throughout the community. So it's a very, very different, pretty serious because just of the volume of cases that we're seeing. So the Board of Health had asked me to prepare a work session with them on how, what are some of the preparations we are implementing for the fall and what are the resources that we will need. Right now, the state is doing our contact tracing. It hasn't been as it hasn't been as effective as we would like, not because of the state, not because there's a state problem, but we haven't been doing our own contact tracing, and that is pretty problematic because also there's a delay in communication. And now with just the schools getting ready to reopen, Blackhawk County is really, we have the sectors that are considered hot spots. So we have the universities, again, long-term care, meat packing. It's just, it's the beauty of Blackhawk County, but we really have sectors that we need to prepare for. So tomorrow with the Board of Health, I will present a plan on how, what are some of the strategies, what are some of the resources we need in order to be fully ready by the end of August. The schools, I've met with the superintendents. We provided them with the guidance that they're working to implement. We're in constant communication. But we are going to need, I do believe we're going to need the additional resources, which I'll communicate with the Board of Health and then follow up with the Board of Supervisors, as you all have indicated in the past. But it's just right now there's community spread, and we're, again, averaging about 29 cases. And again, it's pretty different from before, where we knew exactly where they were, where we could do the contact, talk to the business. But this now it's everywhere. The health directors from the larger counties have written a letter to the governor just asking a bit of enforcement as it relates to face coverings, especially in the businesses. We know that it's very difficult to enforce it throughout the community, but at least with businesses, we're really asking businesses to require face coverings. We have been seeing an increase of face coverings over the past several days, which has been really good to see. But now there's really momentum from other larger counties to push for this face covering. That's what we know will help. I've recommended for the schools to implement face coverings. I know it's going to be very hard for the kids, but physical distancing in the classrooms are really difficult. And so we have to prepare ourselves to have also liaison for these sectors, in which if there's a situation, they can immediately call the health department and get assistance. But with the state doing our contact tracing, that's going to be a little bit difficult. So we're going to present a model to the Board of Health tomorrow, so that we can acquire our contact tracing back. Most of the larger counties are already doing their own contact, but we had to give ours back because of the outbreak and just reaching at volumes of 120, 130 and more. No county has experienced that number of volume in a day, but Blackhawk County did. So it was very difficult to give back those cases. That role at the state level, that's not the efficient way to control for the spread of a virus. So we need to be able to regain that capacity, especially with the school districts and the university opening. So that's where we're at. I highly recommend, as our elected officials, continue to push for the face covering, especially when individuals cannot physically distance. This is really, it's proven to be effective, so it's not some kind of false tale. It's just proven to be effective. And I will continue to work with Grove Cedar Valley to emphasize that communication with the businesses. Again, I applaud their efforts. I do see them trying their best, and even the school districts are really trying their best. This is very, very new. We don't want to place that burden on the school systems to do those contact tracing and trying to control the spread. They're going to need all our support. So this is what staff have been preparing for. We're just trying to figure out what's the best way to get the resources to be efficiently so that we can control for the spread. So any questions you have for me now or throughout the week, please let me know, but I will follow up next week after the board meeting and to communicate with you all if there's any outcome in what that the board has decided.
Nafisa, I do have a question. I guess you mentioned the 29, the number 29, that average. I'm sorry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My concern, I guess, or my question to you was the number that you mentioned being above 50 and that we were averaging at 29. At what point do you think we should be having more communication with the public, I guess? What number is that, or concern, not necessarily that we have to open the EOC, but that we have to do some more communication, I guess, with the public?
Yes, so we do have to do some more communication with the public. We've been working with Cohesive just to push for also campaigns and all those strategies. I think for us, it was more of a matter of how to effectively utilize our resources. So I want to see where we land tomorrow with the Board of Health because at some point we're going to need contact tracers. I mean, this is just a model that we've seen throughout. I've talked to colleagues in Johnson County, Lynn, Scott, Cerro Gordo. So I'm just trying to figure out how to efficiently use our resources, but we will be also pushing out those campaigns, looking to have key leaders in the community be part of those campaigns and whatnot. So starting next week, you will see some of that. But our energy has been in trying to create an infrastructure that allows for us to be able to regain that role that is critical. And so we've seen that when our rates are starting to average about 30, it's almost like 70% of staff just doing that, and so it's just where's that balance? Because there's other things that are operationally right now. But so yes, to your question, we will continue. I don't think it's the time. We're at a time right now to open the EOC, but I will gauge when that time is. But I do think that for us, communication will start occurring before school starts. I just wanted to give just the school districts that capacity, the time to plan first. But yeah.
Thank you. I guess I do have another question as far as this results, I guess, in the state not doing the contact tracing. And maybe it's unfair to ask you when you haven't had your discussions with the board, but I'm just thinking the state's very aware of these numbers as well. And as they have been doing the contact tracing, I would assume they should be very pleased to see us taking on this role. But with that, I guess we'd like to see resources from the state being directed to us as well. But
yeah, so a lot of it, in terms of resources, we're hoping with the FEMA money, most of this stuff can be reimbursed. I'm working with our financial manager and just also with colleagues that are applying for that. The thing is, with the state doing the contact tracing, it's almost humanly impossible to get the information right when you need it, And so that's the concern with, the schools reopening. If us at the local level, we're not doing that, and we're having to wait for the state to follow up with, which contact, who's exposed, all that stuff. By then, people could have just gone by their merry way, right? So I think it's more of, what do we need to do for Blackhawk County? It's the same communication with the businesses that I've emphasized. I know that they might be uncomfortable requiring a face covering. However, if you have to shut down because you have, a potential exposure, it defeats the point, right? So you might as well just require it so that you can stay operationally. So I think it's more of, we've seen patterns in which really things have been pushed down to our, on our shoulders, and that's the unfortunate reality of what's happening. So.
No, thanks very much. Appreciate you being proactive on this end, but thanks very much for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other department heads or elected officials today?
Good morning, James Perry, Finance Director. I did just want to let the board know that we got our engagement letter from our auditors, Clifton Larson Allen. I read through it yesterday. Everything looks good. I will sign it and send it back. Chris, I'll have you sign it as well. But they will plan to be here the week of August 17th. So I reserved the room over there. They're going to try to do as much as possible online or via Zoom as they can, but they will be on site for at least a short period of time, and they can let us know if they have any questions or anything like that, but I wanted everybody to have that information. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other department heads or elected officials today? We will move on to the minutes approved from the July 21st meeting.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Next is the consent agenda. This will be approved with a single resolution.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Little,
Yes.
Jelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes,
Schwartz,
Yes. Agenda is approved. Our consent agenda is approved. We will now move on to reports. This is an update from Ben Della Gardell, doing business as Urban Services Incorporated, regarding the Washburn sanitary sewer system.
Good morning, board.
Morning.
It's my first meeting in a while. Glad to join you on the Zoom meeting this morning. I want to, first of all, thank you for your diligence in this tough time with the COVID response and planning. You guys are showing true leadership with this and listening to the health officials. It's probably the most difficult time, I think, for the board in my recent history of working with you guys. So just want to start by thanking you for that. As far as Washburn goes, the routine maintenance is happening. We're doing the water monitoring, mowing, preventative maintenance. I'm currently in the process of replacing a fence post at the lagoon. The gate fell over about a month ago, and I'm just now getting to replace that. So we've got the post up, and I got to put the hardware in it here quickly. So back in June, we had a lot of rain around June 20th to the 22nd, and this presented some flooding issues in the area. I received a lot of calls for lights on and pumps running nonstop, and we had one that was almost underwater. So I spent some time maintaining or responding to that, and we also found some infiltration issues with that process. We have water coming into a couple of the stations that is not from houses. It's just getting into the structure that needs to be sealed up with some sealant. So here in the future, I will be sealing those up with a expanding foam that can hopefully take care of those issues. There was also another issue brought up by a resident there with the dewatering well, and that has to do with the hose that's going through the yard. She just purchased the property this spring, I think, and she's contacted me. I've asked her to contact you guys, and she would just like the blue hose removed from her yard. The dewatering well is not being used for quite a while now. I don't remember when we actually took that out of service, but the power meter's not there, and it hasn't been used for at least 8 years, if not 10. So if you could approve me to spend a couple hours to go over there and remove the hose, I know it goes through a couple fences, and then to dispose of that, that would help this resident take care of that issue. I had talked to Rory before about it, and I don't know if conversations happened in the background or not, but how would you like me to approach that issue?
Well, the hose was supposed to be removed a long time ago. I'm surprised it's even there. It's all deteriorated. So
Yeah, it's got holes, and
yeah, the pump don't even exist, and it probably never will exist because there's no money in the account to do anything. Can
Right.
you get the hose? Can you get the hose out of there and be done with it and dispose
Yeah,
of
I
it?
can, and that's why I approached you about this today, is just to take care of it, and it'll be an end of discussion after today. So
Yeah, I think it goes across 2 different yards, if I'm not mistaken.
it does. It goes into that ditch, and people mow around it, move it, trim around it.
Yeah, just take it up.
It would have to be replaced if we did implement the pump again, which it won't. But
No, that ain't gonna happen.
okay, so if you guys are okay with that, I will go ahead and take care of that issue soon for the resident. And then the last thing that I have to present to you, I guess, was the hookup process. I've talked to Mr. Perry about a couple times, and we can continue the discussion, but I was just approached by the health department yesterday via phone call, and there's another person that wants to hook up to the system, which is completely fine. We just need to collect the hookup fee, and then we need to be inspecting the installation of their discharge into the system, which is at the Youngblood Contractors on LaPorte Road. There's a pump in front of the I don't know the exact address, but that's where the new hookup will be. They haven't started construction yet, but they're in discussion. So they had approached the health department about doing a septic tank, which is against code because there's a sewer hookup within 200 feet. And the reason this entire system was put in was to eradicate septic tanks in this low-lying area of your county. So just in discussion about that, I wanted to be upfront about talking to the health department about that. So I think I talked to a gal named Kelly Amador over there, who we just had a nice discussion about it. So we're working together to get that resident knowledgeable about the hookup process. So
Ben, will you bring that back to us when you get ready, I guess, to go further on it, or?
Yep. I'm sure the next couple weeks there will be more discussion. It sounded like they wanted to start construction soon. There's another site that James Perry and I had talked about, and it was a different location. They're a little less urgent with it, but they were doing their homework before purchasing a property. So that one may get hooked up as well. They're both, they have the access to the sewer. The sewer can accommodate those lots. So we shouldn't have no problem other than collecting the hookup fee to take care of, the infrastructure cost as well as my cost to go out and inspect the hookup, be there that day, and provide whatever information I need to provide them. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Is there any other questions? That's basically all I have, other than just regular maintenance happening just fine. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
And move on to other business. This is resolution of the statement of completion and final acceptance of work and the construction pay estimate report for project BHS C007 1476307 for Finchford Road Bridge rehabilitation on C55 Finchford Road over West Fork of the Cedar River, and direct the Iowa Department of Transportation to make final payment in the amount of $27,596.10, with a total project of $921,129.93, as recommended by Catherine Nicholas, County Engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Moved to Kathy.
Yeah, thank you. I would recommend that you accept this and we be allowed to release the retainage to pay Kramer and Associates for their work. I did want to show you a few slides of this project. It was a pretty unique and large project for us here at the county. And I thought I'd show you about 6 or 7 slides of the work. And so this is the before condition of the structure. It's one of our larger structures here in the county, and it's just north of Finchford, the community of Finchford. There's 2 structures there, if you're familiar there. This is the south structure. The bridge was built in 1959. It's quite long, 350 feet long, and it carries about 380 cars a day. When it was inspected in 2016, it was decided, this is inspected by consultants for us because it is such a large structure. It was decided that it was at that time structurally deficient, meaning we could use federal funds to then pay for this either replacement or rehabilitation. There was an overlay approximately 20 to 25 years ago, a deck overlay that was beginning to fail. There was laminations on the top of the structure as well as underneath the bridge. Corrosion was occurring on the rebar, causing the concrete to separate from the steel rebar. And when that happens, it loses strength to carry loads. The structure does.
What's spalling?
So that's a good question. Here's a photo. The upper left photo, you can see where the concrete is separating from the rebar, the steel rebar, due to corrosion, salt and water getting underneath the slab. The steel bars start to expand, they start to rust, and then the concrete can no longer attach itself to those steel bars, and it pops off. It spalls away from the steel rebar. You can see that lower photo, that you can still see the rusty rebar there, and the concrete has just fallen away from the steel then. And that was happening over a good portion of the underside of the structure, leading it to be rated as poor. And also the bearings here some of them were in very poor condition and a little bit worse than we realized, as I'll show you in a few further slides here. So next slide. Then, of course, we put the plans together, issued a contract. Kramer was our low bidder at almost $900,000.
We're awful over.
Yeah, I don't have any internet.
And this was the first order of work, was to remove the deck. And you can see that's what they're doing here, to just completely remove the deck. It was rotten concrete and steel. It all had to be replaced. Another thing that we wanted to do with this structure is that it was not able to carry permitted loads. When this bridge was built, we did in 1959, some of today's configurations of truck configurations, they weren't used back then. So as a result, sometimes we were not able to permit certain loads across that structure. It didn't mean that it couldn't carry legal loads, but there were times when we were not able to permit loads. So one of our reasons for when we were doing the rehabilitation was that so we could make the beams stronger, and so that was one of the orders of work. I'll talk about that more in a little bit here. So we added steel underneath these beams, and that would stiffen them and allow them to carry more loads. Work started in July of 2018. Next slide. So you can see that these are the stiffeners. They're very long pieces of steel that are welded and bolted to the underside of these beams, and that allows them to carry heavier loads. Next slide. One of the problems I told you about was the bearings. They were either very corroded. Some of the bolts the nuts had worked their way off over the years just due to all the movement of the bearings throughout the seasons. You can see in that lower right-hand photo that one of the bolts was completely missing. I don't know how this happened. And due to the inspections, I think that was something that maybe we missed. And when it came time to actually do the rehabilitation, the contractor saw that some of these, we didn't provide for enough details for those bearings. When it came time to rehabilitate them, and we struck the contractor struck the bolts, they just busted off. And so there was nothing to rehabilitate. We had to go in and replace those to retap a new bolt in the process. And that did add some engineering and some extra work at about $10,000 to $15,000 for those corrections. Next slide. You can see that this is what the new bolt looks like. It's been totally sandblasted and repainted, and of course the new bolt is in place. So this is just before repainting of the bearing assembly. Next slide. In the upper left-hand slide, you can see that all of our steel, our green steel, epoxy-coated steel, which is meant to resist rust, salt, and that type of corrosion over the years, has all been installed. And you can see in the lower photo there, our contractor was placing the deck concrete at that time. Next slide. So one of the other items of work was to paint those steel beams so that the corrosion stops. So they had to be sandblasted, and of course, when that happens, all of that paint has to be contained. So containment has to be wrapped entirely around the underside of the structure. And then they are sandblasted and then painted. Go ahead, Kim. And then one of the very last items of works, here you can see the completed bridge, the the barrier rail has been placed, pavement markings. So the next spring, our contractor had to come back and collect the steel rebar, anything that had fallen into the river over the past construction season, they had to come back and collect that. Next slide. And so they did finish on time and almost a little bit over contract costs. We usually don't exceed contract costs, but in this case we did, just due to some of those unforeseen issues with the bearings. We were about 4% over, but this new overlay should provide at least 25 to 35 years of good concrete on this structure, making for a much more durable surface. And it will carry heavier loads now than it did in the past. So can I answer any questions on this? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy. There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Jelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes, the resolution is approved. Next is a motion that the personnel requisition for office specialist in the county recorder's office be approved as recommended by Sandy Smith, county recorder.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The motion carries. Next is discussion, possible board action, discuss county preparedness for COVID-19. I know as was mentioned by Dr. Cece Ibonye earlier today, that mask coverings are really one of the best tools that we have. We are one of the states that does not have a mask mandate in Iowa. We've been seeing a number of local governments either issue mandates in defiance of the state code and the governor, or issue resolutions calling on the governor or calling on the public to do so. And I'd like to see this board do one of those things, and I'd just like to have a conversation of what the appetite is of this board to take one of those actions.
So if we do that, what would it do? I've been in a lot of businesses here lately, and it goes from the people working in a restaurant having masks on to people not having any protection on, being waitresses and food servers. Mm-hmm. I've seen them with gloves on. I've seen them with one glove on and one glove off, and the money change in hand. And like in the grocery store, they've got a piece of plastic over where you punch your code in. They don't wipe that off. They don't wipe off. Not everybody wipes off their trade or area where the food
Right.
goes down for when you're buying groceries.
Right.
So I think the Grove Cedar Valley and the health department ought to put out a deal first to have people start following some rules that are all standard for everybody, and then go from there.
Okay, Dan?
Well, it's been interesting to watch this monster evolve. I'm living my life cautiously. I think many people are. It's interesting how there are some things people are defiant about what we're doing. I think we need to reemphasize wearing a mask is good. I agree with it. It's proven. Social distancing, good hygiene. But we can't stop living our life. People have adapted. They've evolved. I do not support a county-wide mask mandate. I do support businesses making that decision. I do encourage businesses to utilize it. And even the state, if the state mandated it, enforcement is an issue, because I can see the headline now, police tase man for not wearing mask. I think all of us have friends now who have gotten this disease. Most are going to survive, but it's brutal. From what one person told me, he wished he was dead. It was that bad. It impacted him that terribly. I'm hoping a vaccine is going to become available within the next year or two. I support the kids going back to school because our school districts are giving us options. I think with the options being provided, there are going to be fewer students in the classroom, so I'm hoping the schools can engage in social distancing. My 7 and 8-year-old have been great about wearing masks when we go to places like Fleet Farm and stuff. This country, this community won't tolerate a second shutdown unless we have people falling over dead in the street. We have to be careful. We have to be cautious. I'm just trying to be a voice of reason in this whole situation.
Good point.
Well, I mean, I think I do wish that, because it's clear that with the state code under a public health crisis, that the governor does have the power, and I think the governor has failed to lead at multiple turns throughout this pandemic, whether it was ignoring the outbreak at Tyson, which impacted this community so much, whether it was kind of the haphazard communication about sheltering in place, and all these steps that we could have taken that science was telling us to take for months and months that we just did not do because she's decided to politicize things and wanted to be best friends with Trump, who was politicizing all this to a dangerous, disgusting level. And so now we're at this point that we're going to open schools, and we've got most of the public wanting to cooperate and do things that, like wear a mask, that can slow this down. But then we've got another side that has this false sense of what freedom is, and thinks that their individual liberty, which is a really kind of perverted interpretation of that, trumps the public safety of everybody. And so we're entering a point where we're going to be opening schools up in a time that we've erased a lot of the progress that could have been made really out of kind of selfish decisions. And it's really, really sad that we've gotten to this point. And, I just want to see what we can do to encourage our citizens to be the best, most responsible, compassionate people to our friends and neighbors in this community.
Chris, are you
Yes.
waiting for comments, I guess? Yes, well, I think it's important. I do think it's not something that, I think enforcement's probably an issue of it. I think that's going to be something we'd have to discuss. I do think I very much support businesses doing it and in protection of their employees as well as their customers, and commend those that are doing it, because I think it does make a difference and allows us to keep businesses open and people being able to live their lives to some degree as far as purchases and buying groceries and some of those things that we can avoid shutting down everything like we did before. But I guess I would like to wait to hear more information too from the health board, and if they see some things from a marketing standpoint or things that we can do. What I'm afraid of is the people that are willing to do it and that are doing it now, that there probably won't be a big difference in actions and people's behavior. And so I think it's The people that want to do it are doing it now. The people that see value in it are doing it now, and we won't be encouraging people to do it in many other instances. But I truly, like I said, would just like to hear more as things progress and maybe get worse on this, what we're going to be doing as a community. So not ready for that yet is all, I guess. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of echo the same thing that Linda said. Basically, I agree with mask. I wear a mask. My wife wears a mask, and I think everybody should. But it's pretty obvious the Board of Supervisor has no power in this right here. I guess what we can do is to ask our area legislators that we have here in Blackhawk County to put the pressure on and encourage the governor and the state to change that. But as far as the board taking any action, I don't see that doing anything. Plus, we don't have the authority to do it. So if I'm going to vote for something, I'm going to vote for something where I at least have a part one way or the other. In this case here, it's nothing. So I encourage people to wear masks. Hopefully most of them will. Maybe the businesses will, like Linda said. And maybe the state level, they'll finally determine that we need to do a different direction here in the state of Iowa. So
the other item I'd like to bring up is, as we've been following on the progress of the HEROES Act, and now the counterpart in the Senate is called the HEALS Act. The latest version of it does include some good things. There would be an extension of the moratorium on evictions, which was critically important for this community and communities across the country. One really big thing that is missing in Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's version of the HEALS Act is support for local government, which we're still not seeing what the scope is of the financial hit that's going to be here. The HEROES Act in the House has it, and now the House and Senate are going to have to come together and come to an agreement of what's going to make it into a final bill that passes both chambers. But I encourage people, if they've have any ear with either Senators Joni Ernst or Senator Grassley, just to be communicating the importance of support for local governments, financial support, and just how at this time that's really what's best for our economy. Is there anything else anybody else would like to bring up or discuss? All right, do we have any other reports or information from the board?
Just like to report, we're still looking for some volunteers for the Field of Honor, the 8th and 9th of August. That's Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be a beautiful ceremony being held for both days down at the Memorial Hall grounds. We invite everyone down to walk through the site to see the 500 plus flags that will be flying in honor of any veteran from Blackhawk County that was killed from the Civil War to present day in the line of duty. And if you want to volunteer, 833-3078 is my phone number, or 215-7104 is my cell. We need guards for at night because we'll be leaving the flags up Saturday night, so through the night we'll be having guards down there protecting the flags because we know what today's world's like.
Good. And I will just remind the board, and I'm going to reach out to some folks too, that we do still have some vacancies on the Board of Adjustments.
Yep.
I believe maybe planning and zoning too. And there is at least one application pending that cannot go forward because of the actions of the state legislature this year, which kicked off all of our members from the incorporated parts of the community. With that, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, this meeting is adjourned.